Hi, welcome back to the Watchung Booksellers podcast, where we bring you conversations from our independent bookstore's vast community of book professionals who talk about what they do for the love of books. Thanks for joining us. I'm Kathryn, and I'm here with my co-producer, Marnie. Hey, Marnie.
Hi there.
And today we are sharing a special partner event we held last week at the Montclair Literary Festival.
We were thrilled to welcome back to Montclair Anne Berest, who was here 2 years ago, to share her fantastic novel, The Postcard. And this time she was here with her sister, Claire Berest, with whom she wrote the novel Gabrielle. And they were in conversation with author Violet Mujica.
And if you haven't heard about it, Gabrielle is the fictionalized story of the sister's great-grandmother, Gabrielle Buffet, who was an early 20th century composer and musician, but also the wife to Francis Picabia and muse of Marcel Duchamp. Her story was largely lost amidst the work of those artists, so Anne and Claire Berest decided to tell her story as a true novel. It was a wonderful event hosted in partnership with the Lit Fest, the Montclair Public Library, and the Montclair campus of L'Alliance, New York. First, though, Marnie, have you had any time to read anything?
I haven't had a ton of time to read, but I just started Zadie Smith's On Beauty because we are going to discuss it for the book club in the store, the New York Times 100 Best Books of the 21st Century. And we are meeting on Monday, May 19th at 7 p.m. And you're welcome to join us. You can register on our website. We'd love to have you. How about you? What are you reading?
That's great. And we actually have 2 more new book clubs if you're interested in joining those, hosted by our bookseller, Aubrey. One is the LGBTQ book club, and the other is the Anything Goes book club, and it's basically anything goes. So take a look at our website, and under the pull-down menu events, you'll see book clubs, and there's a whole list of all the clubs we have happening in the store. I think we're up to 6 or 7 now.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's
Yeah,
great.
yeah. So there's definitely something you're going to like. But as for reading, I just started Go as a River by Shelley Reed. And she's actually coming to the store for the paperback release of that book on June 11th. I'm not sure how this one got by me exactly because it is so good. And it has been a bestseller and been sold for like 37 international rights.
Wow.
But it's a debut novel, and it's a story set in 1948 on a peach farm in Colorado. With a teenage girl who meets this drifter and falls in love. It's coming of age, but it's got great character development, and it's not sappy or corny. It's just very simple and beautiful. So, and Shelley is a writing professor at Western College University, and this is her first book.
Sounds great. So let's introduce the event. Anne Berest's first novel to appear in English, The Postcard, was a national bestseller, a library journal, NPR, and Time Best Book of the Year, Vogue Most Anticipated Book of the Year, and runner-up for the 2024 Dayton Literary Peace Prize. It was described as stunning by Leslie Comhee in The New Yorker, and as a powerful literary work by Julie Oringer in the New York Times Book Review, and as intimate, profound, essential in the pages of ELLE magazine. Her new novel, Gabrielle, is based on the life of Gabrielle Buffet, whose extraordinary impact on the 20th century avant-garde art and whose remarkable life has largely been obscured. Berest lives in Paris.
Claire Berest is the author of several novels, including Mikado, The Empty Orchestra, and Bellevue, and 2 works of nonfiction, Class Struggle, Why I Resigned from National Education, and Lost Children, an investigation in the Minors Brigade.
Violet Mujica was born in Paris in 1979 and has lived and worked in New York for 20 years, where she ran the Brooklyn Academy of Music's literary series and also organized multidisciplinary art festivals across the city. Her debut novel, The Book of Mother, was awarded multiple literary prizes, including the Prix François Sagan and the Prix Marie Claire.
Enjoy the conversation, and we'll be back after to fill you in on what's coming up in the store.
Thank Claire and Anne for being here tonight. Also, this is the last event of a very busy tour for them. I'm sure many of you have seen the amazing press coverage that the book has received already, a glowing New York Times review, a glowing Washington Post review. They also did a lot of interviews, so be kind to them tonight. And they're very generous for being here. Claire and Anne are both writers. Claire is the author of 7 novels, including a biography of Frida Kahlo. And I just found out that she's actually publishing a new book in France that's coming out tomorrow. So wish her luck on the next leg of her next book tour. And that book is about the Gisèle Pellicot trial. Anne Berest, as I imagine many of you know, is the author of The Postcard, most notably. And very interestingly, Gabrielle is sort of a prequel to The Postcard. So that's going to be my first question. Well, first, I don't know how many of you know about the book, what the book is, so just in very brief, Gabrielle is the story of Claire and Anne's great-great-grandmother, who they resuscitate in this book in 2 ways. First, as a character in art history and in modern history, because her name was completely erased from the record, but also from their own personal family history, because in their family, her name and her presence was also erased. So there's this double erasure that's the impetus for the writing of the book. But I have to say, my last novel is about my grandfather, who was also erased from French history, although in my family he was definitely not erased from the personal history record. And I also have a sister who's in about the same age difference as Anne and Claire are. So I feel very touched to be here and to be in conversation with you two, because I feel a great deal of kinship to your story. My sister is not a writer at all, and my sister doesn't even read my books. So in that, we very much differ. And so that's what I'm most curious about, how you approached tackling this story together.
Thank you. We are so happy being here. For me, that's the second time in Montclair, and I have the memory of a very good moment here. Above all, our dream was to write a book together. So this deep will, this deep desire was inside us before having a topic. And we wanted to write together because it was like we wanted to travel back in time to our childhood when we were playing together. And writing together was for us the same idea of playing together as kids and being in a kind of bubble, just the two of us. But we needed a subject, we needed a topic. And one day, it was the summer, the holidays, and I don't know why, I really wanted to read a biography of this amazing artist you probably know, who is Marcel Duchamp. I don't know why I was focused on it. And I understood why when after the first chapters, I discovered the name of our great-grandmother. And I was surprised because we didn't know anything about her. And I was surprised to find that she had been the great love of Marcel Duchamp, that they had a love triangle with Francis Picabia, so Gabriel's husband, or great-grandfather, the great painter. And so I thought, wow, it's amazing. This woman, she seems so modern, so free, so avant-garde. So I called Claire and I told her, I think we have our subject.
Thanks. I remember this phone call, you know, because it was years that we wanted to work together. We were already both writers, and we needed like a sign. And maybe it was as if Gabrielle went and knocked on our door, you know. And just maybe to give you a little bit of context, when we grew up, all the family of our mother, it was a big shadow, like a big night. It was mystery, like Anne really in such a strong and beautiful way explained in the postcard novel. On her mother's side, everybody was murdered in Auschwitz. But on the father's side of our mother, it was also a mystery. And so when we grew up, Picabia, we knew this name, but it was the name of our mother, and that was it, because she's Lélia Picabia. And so, yeah, it was our mother's name. But that's true that in our home, where we grew up together, there was, you know, on the top bookshelves, some books with Picabia written on it, but it was too high, we couldn't really reach them. And once in a while, our mother said a few stuff about her family, very, very little. And about Gabrielle, her grandmother, so our great-grandmother, the only thing she said was, Gabrielle, la terrible Gabrielle. And that's it, means the terrible Gabrielle. Okay. So, you know, when you hide things from children, when you don't tell them the stories, when there is skeletons in the closet, or, you know, ghosts, children want to go there. And like Anne said it, we wanted to write together, like we played together, but also maybe to come back to this secret from our childhood, try to understand what was the big mystery. And we understood that with the Marcel Duchamp's biography, that this woman, she was so free, she has so much to tell us. So it was double reason we really wanted to go to have some investigation and to bring her from the shadows into the spotlight.
There's a very beautiful moment in the book. I don't remember which of you experiences it, when you go see the Francis Picabia retrospective at the Museum of Modern Art in Paris, and you discover his work at the same time as you discover your connection to him. Which
yeah, in a few words, because actually Anne, she was curious in the good way, so little. She opened dictionaries and she found out that Picabia was some kind of painter. Me, really, I didn't, and that's true. And we write about it in the book, because at the end of the chapters, sometimes there is like little dialogues between the two of them. And we explained that we were maybe 18, 20 years old, and we were living in the suburbs of Paris. And we went to Paris once in a while, but not that often, and never in an unexpected way. And that day, our mother, that maybe you met with postcards, you know, little woman, she smokes like chimney all the time, okay? She just went to us and said, okay, tonight we go to Paris at the big Museum of Modern Art, very fancy place, you know, huge museum, because there is an opening night about my grandfather. And we're like, what the hell, you know? Who's this guy? Okay, let's go with her. And we remember when we arrived at the museum, there was this big crowd of people in front of the museum, very fancy, you know, very Parisian. And we were here not knowing really what to do. And our mother, you know, just wearing some jeans and, you know, some sneakers, just went to say, people, just move, I want to go there, you know, like to just push people away to go inside the museum. She lit a cigarette inside the museum, you remember? Very bad, even in Paris, very bad, you know, you don't do that. And inside, with Anne, we look at all these paintings that it's our great-grandfather who did all that. And that's true, at one point, I remember it like yesterday. You know, Picadia, he painted so much different type of paintings. Cubism, abstract, figurative, and so on. And there is a moment he painted a lot of Spanish women. It's very pretty paintings, figurative, and there was some in the exhibit, and Anne, she looked at one and she said, look, it's crazy, she looks exactly like you. And it's as if, you know, we have some kind of vertigo with his great-grandfather, this painting, and so on. That's us.
So maybe
A new mic.
maybe you can describe your family tree a little bit for the audience here that might have read the postcard, because Gabrielle, your great-grandmother, was still alive when you were born, and you were little girls in Paris. She lived very near you, but you didn't know her, and you didn't even know of her existence.
Yes.
So Gabrielle Buffet was born in 1881, and she died 104 years later. And so we were born when she died, and so in the postcard, she's 60 years old. She's when you discover her in the postcard, she's creating a very important resistance network during World War II. And so she's with her daughter at the head of this network. And as Violet said, Gabrielle is like a prequel, because in Gabrielle she's 20 to 37 years old. And to explain the family tree, so Gabrielle, she had 4 children with Francis Picabia, and the first one is our grandfather. When he was born, his parents had already split, divorced. They were not living together anymore, even if they were still friends, because Francis and Gabrielle, they will stay friends forever. And so when our grandfather was born, she was living with Marcel Duchamp. And Francis, he was living with another woman who was pregnant at the same time of Gabrielle. And when our grandfather was born, they decided to call him Lorenzo. And 3 months after, when the other kid was born, it was a boy, and they said, let's call him Lorenzo. They thought it was funny. You know, all these people, Marcel, Francis, Gabriel, they were genius. But when you are genius, usually you are not good parents. And so so our grandfather, when he grew up, he decided to change his name. So he's Vicente, and in the postcard it's Vicente. And our grandfather was like, had a difficult childhood, and he met our grandmother during the war. Our grandmother, she was Jewish, they get married, and in 1944 came our mother. So that's the family tree.
What I find particularly beautiful in this book, Gabrielle, is that you have this biography of this extraordinary woman, and at the same time, the story of two sisters writing the story of this extraordinary woman, and a very personal connection to the story. So you have these three narrative threads happening at the same time, and I find it quite spectacular. I'm very curious to hear how you actually wove these narratives together, because you each have individual voices as writers. But before you answer that, I'd like to read one of the passages where you write to each other or you talk to each other, which I find very beautiful, and this will, I hope, give you a chance to tell the story of Gabrielle while the audience will get to hear your voices also. I was talking about Gabrielle with some friends yesterday, tried to explain why we want to rescue her from obscurity, erase her erasure. Someone said that the feminist sheen we're putting on her life is debatable. I was shocked by that at first, because the list of women whose talent has been stifled by men is so very long. I got quite irritated, even offended. And as I was trying to think of a comeback to that remark, a vague idea occurred to me. I thought that maybe it was true, that Gabrielle's case actually was different. Because what's so troubling about her is that no one prevented her from being famous or successful. She was the one who wanted to be forgotten. And unlike the other women we were talking about, Gabrielle wasn't an artist in the strict sense of the word. Her perspective was something new, other. She was like a kind of medium, a messiah, but one who never proselytizes.
No,
She's my boss, so I ask her, you know. Thanks for the beautiful reading, and that's true, it's important moment in the book for us, and maybe in a few words to explain, to give you some context. Yes, Gabrielle, she was not an artist. She could have been, because she was, since she was a little girl, she was completely connected to music, and she saw music everywhere. She heard music everywhere, like, you know, around her, the mountains, the clouds, people's voice, everything was music. And growing up, she studied at an important school in Paris. She was the only female student in the composer class, with just, you know, guys, you can see a picture of her at that time. You have all these guys, all mustache, you know, she's in the middle, and she looked at the camera like really like deep. Okay, so she did that, and after that she went in Berlin, because at that time it was the place to be for music, for composition. She met there Edgar Varese, who became a very important musician, and so on. Okay, she could have been an artist. But when she met Picabia, for a reason that's difficult to understand, it's a little bit an enigma, and that's what this passage is about. She quit everything. She was supposed to go back to Berlin. She was just in holidays to her mother's place. She was supposed to come back to Berlin, but she met this guy, so different from her. She was, like all about brain. She doesn't want to be pretty. She doesn't want to be cute. She doesn't want to be sexy. She's just really into this deep conversation about how to change art, how to make the revolution in music, in painting. And she met Picabia, and Picabia is really famous when she met him. He's already very happy to be famous. He has a lot of ego, and he loves having money, to buy a lot of champagne, to throw big parties, and he loves that people is talking about him, saying that he's a genius. Gabrielle's the opposite. She doesn't want to be on the picture. She doesn't care. But, and love is such, great mystery. We love it. These two, they met, and in the room, everything changed. The atmosphere. And they couldn't get apart anymore. Even when they get divorced, they stay best friends until one of them died first, So, we could read now the story of Gabrielle when we started our research. Why this woman, she was a kind of midwife for brain for all the artists of the time. So close Picabia, but Apollinaire, Duchamp, Apollinaire, very famous French poet, with Stravinsky, with Calder, Brancusi, all these guys, they said, I would not have done my work without this woman, And we find all the pieces of that in all the memoirs, all the archives of these guys. But one thing we understand little by little doing the research. At first we thought, okay, art history is written by, male, by men, and like a lot of other women, artists, brains, she has been erased. In this case of Gabrielle, we understood little by little. That was, different, interesting, because truly this woman, she loved to be in all the big discussion, to create magazines, to, prepare some exhibits, to have some great project, to read, to write text and everything. But when the fame arrived, when the moment arrived, when the light arrived, she just ran away. She just escaped. She doesn't care. All these great artists she loved, they love to be in the light. Great, just do it. It is a little bit as if they were her kids, She didn't really care about her kids, but all these artists, it was as if, okay, go in the light. Me, I don't care. What I want is that every day, at the moment, my life is about art, all the time, breaking rules, changing everything, to feel all that, but the fame and all that stuff, I don't care. That was really interesting to understand that and to have question about all that.
I find it so powerful that she didn't care about her children. She didn't care about meeting her great children, her great grandchildren, and yet, thanks to you both, she's now famous not just in France but also in English and around the world, and she even has a little park in her name in Paris.
That's true, because after the book came out in France, the mayor of Paris proposed to baptize a garden, the Garden Gabrielle Buffet in Paris, near the street Francis Picabia.
Yeah, it's very beautiful. So can you tell us about, maybe this is too insidery for all of you, but I'm so curious to know how you actually wrote together. How do you merge your voices?
So the problem was that we have two very different styles, and it would have been uncomfortable to read a book with such differences from a chapter to another. So we had to find a way to create a new voice or something coherent. So that's why we decided to make what we have called a literary ping pong. It means that we each wrote a piece of text, a chapter, a draft of something, and then we switched. We exchange. Exchange is good. Yes. We exchanged what we have written, and the other had to rewrite all the words, all the sentences. For a writer, it's something very difficult. And Violet, she understands.
I understand. I cannot imagine. I mean, and your sister.
Yes.
Imagine.
I know her sister very well, Violet's sister.
And she knows that I'm kind of grateful that my sister doesn't read my work.
So can you imagine your sister writing your book?
No.
And so, but it was so interesting for an experience, for many reasons. First, because in real life, nobody tells you the truth. But a sister tells you the truth. And a sister tells you, oh la la, this text is not good at all. It's cheesy. What have you done? And so you have to be very exigent, and I think that I speak for me, but it was for me a very good school, a very writing school. And I think I became a better writer, and I improved my writing process while working with my sister. And so we exchanged our drafts, but again and again and again. So at the end, we had a text with a new voice. It was not anymore my voice or her voice. It was something completely new, and I think we had a great pleasure while this craft of writing.
It's quite striking because at the end of some chapters, as Anne and Claire have pointed out, they sometimes talk to each other. And so there's an I that comes up, and you really cannot tell. The I is a singular I that feels like the voice of the book, and yet it's two people. It's very striking. I'm going to open it to your questions in a moment, but I want to quote one last passage, which is to me the most moving moment in the book. When they talk about the erasure from the family record and why their mother wouldn't talk about Gabrielle. So this is about Lilia, their mother. It was clear that she never wanted to hear anything about Francis Picabia or Gabrielle Buffet, who had never wanted anything to do with her, never put their arms around the living child of their dead child, and yet it's impossible not to be unsettled when we look at photos of Francis. Our mother looks so much like him. There's something monstrous in the realization, like an echo of the reason for this book. There is no logic to family ties.
Wow. What an incredible conversation. And now it's time for you all to ask the questions that you want to ask.
What does your mother think about the book?
She gives me the mic, you know. I can tell you a little story who says a lot, is that when we finished to write the book, but it was not print, it was, you know, we wanted obviously that she will read it and give us our thoughts, her thoughts, her feelings. And so we sent it to her, and a few days later, I have her on the phone. She's strange, she's weird, and I say, Mom, so did you have a chance to read it, a part of it? And she just say, yes, it's great. Just after I had Anne on the phone, and I say, okay, she didn't read it. We have to wait, it will come later. And she was just lying, obviously. And then, a few weeks, maybe after a few weeks, she called. And she said, okay, I read the book. I knew it was true this time. And what I think is that she's a great mother, very interesting. She gave us a very strong sense of freedom growing up. You know, she was always telling these same sentences like, okay, you always need your passport on you, you can leave, you can go, and do never let a man buy your own cigarettes. It's you. You know, you have to buy them by yourself, you know, all that stuff. Oh, it was great advice. Weird, but great, okay? But she was not the kind of person that really said her feelings, you know, not the type of I love you, you know, it's difficult for her. And I think the book is for her. She probably understood that because her name, Lelia, it's a Jewish name, it's a Hebrew name, and it means the night. Strange to give this name, you know, to a baby, the night. And in a way, we wrote all that book to put a lot of lights into her night. And even though she won't put all that in words between her and us, we know that she got the light, you know.
Thank you very much. You're going to recognize my French accent, but I'm going to go with it and tell you something which is fascinating about this time of the world, you know. I mean, like, the pre-World War I, too, is like so extraordinary out in Paris. But my question is, I was very fascinating that she loved such a different men. Picabia was like, you know, kind of a Picasso guy, very exuberant, with really, you know, shiny clothes and everything else. And Marcel Duchamp was the most secret person that we know in the history of the art, you know. I mean, he refused to give an interview. I just watched an interview on YouTube like for 5 minutes about him. It's so rare to see it. And he was such a highly intellectual and highly conceptual person. How did she love two men so different?
You're totally true. And in fact, they are so different, and they were close friends, Picabia and Marcel. But first, I will say, before answering how she could love this boss guy, I will say they loved her before. And in these both cases, this man had a crush on her at the first sight. And it shows how interesting she was, because she could not seduce, because it was not something she wanted, but she could seduce such different men. But the question why, I think that Francis Picabia gave the answer, because he said that she had an erotic brain. She was so smart, so intelligent, that men fell in love with her brain, her spirit. And I think that it's also what she founded into these two guys, was she understood they had something genius. And I think that Gabrielle loved that. She didn't love men, she loved genius inside men.
I have a writing question, or a category question. I've read the postcard, which I just loved, and I'm eager to read this, and it's just, they're described as a true novel. And so I'm just really interested in this concept of true or nonfiction or biography and novel. And for you as writers, what does that mean? Not so much what it's on flap copy, but like, what did it mean to you as writers to write a true novel?
Okay, it's interesting because true novel, that we will say in French, maybe roman vrai, it's really, I could say, the country of writing for my sister. And she started a beautiful journey, and each of her book, Gabrielle Postcard and the next one, it's really all about exploring the roots of families and, work about this true novel idea. But I can give you example, because we wrote Gabrielle together, and actually I wrote another book a little bit in the same way as true novel about the painter Frida Kahlo, the Mexican painter. And in a few words, what does it mean is that first phase, before even writing a word, huge research, huge. For Gabrielle, 2 years of research, a lot of books, a lot of interviews with curators, with art historians, digging into archives and all that stuff. 2 years. And like Anne likes to say, you have to know everything in order to forget everything. Because the second phase, it's a little bit, all this material, you have been so precise about everything. You have to put it aside to become novelist, to really, being flesh and blood for your characters. So it's not biography, it's not essay, it's not a book of history book, it's a novel. Means you're gonna meet the people, you're gonna meet Gabrielle, you're gonna meet Francis, Marcel Duchamp, you're gonna be with them when they drive their cars, when they get drunk, when they're making love, when they are creating all these big ideas. As a novelist, we have all the freedom to incarnate, I don't know if you say that in English, to incarnate them. But we absolutely don't want to betray the reader. It means if you read the book Gabrielle, all these stories about all this period, beginning of 20th century, all these artists are completely true. We really worked on it. If you read my book about Frida Kahlo, I don't invent things. Everything is by the book. But you enter a novel. And it's, this line between you can just discover what is it to be in Paris in the beginning of century, and you can relay on it, but in a novelistic way. And that's a little bit le roman vrai, true novel.
I want to point out that in the French edition of the book, there are ample footnotes. So it's really researched like a history book, or like a scholarly book. And one thing that is not in the American edition either are the photographs. They're I'm not the editor, I'm sorry. It's not my fault. But you can, they're don't order from Amazon ever. No. But you can buy it from Albertine Bookstore in Manhattan. They have the French edition of the book, and there are independent booksellers that you can buy from online that will give you a French copy of the book if you wanted photos.
Thank you to Anne and Claire Berest for writing this wonderful novel and for coming back to Montclair during your launch. We hope to see you again soon. And thanks to our partners at the Montclair Literary Festival, the Montclair Public Library, and the Montclair campus of L'Alliance New York for your help in putting this event together.
We have another great event with L'Alliance tomorrow, May 14th, in the Kids Room, where New York Times Paris correspondent Elaine Chulino will talk about her book, Adventures in the Louvre. Members of L'Alliance are invited to a pre-event reception with the author, and it's going to be a great talk.
And Thursday, we're hosting local author Marina Antropo-Kramer for the release of her latest novel, Winners and Losers. She'll be in conversation with author Nancy Burke.
You can find out details and register for all of our events in our newsletter, show notes, or at watchungbooksellers.com. The Watchung Booksellers podcast is produced by Kathryn Counsell and Marnie Jessup, and it's recorded at Watchung Booksellers in Montclair, New Jersey. The show is edited by Kathryn Counsell, and original music is composed and performed by Violet Mujica. Art and design and social media by Evelyn Moulton. Research and show notes by Caroline Shurtleff. Thank you to the staff at Watchung Booksellers and the Kids Room for all their hard work and love of books.
And thank you for listening. If you enjoy the show, please like, follow, and share it. You can follow us on social media at Watchung Booksellers. And if you have any questions or ideas, you can reach us at wbpodcast@watchungbooksellers.com.
We'll see you next time. Until then, for the love of books, keep reading.